Hi, so Longhorn community, today is May 8th, 2020, and we are having this Longhorn community monthly meeting. And today our topic is about our the release from the late last month. That's Longhorn 0.A1 and also the upcoming Longhorn GA 1.0 release. Let's share my screen. So as you can see that in the release note, we have just published this 0.A1 release about 10 days ago. And one of the biggest things we have been building for a while is this new Longhorn website. And you can in fact find it, the Longhorn IO is still there, of course, but you can see that the documentation has been separated into different versions. So when you want to see the latest one and in the 8.0A1 release, and you can see the documentation exactly match this one. And also we have done a lot of work to improve the documentation, as you can see here. And we have more contents to coming, and including the maintenance guide and including some failure recovery guide. Those stuff will come in before the GA release. So this is one thing you definitely want to check out. And if you find any like typos or any like inaccurate information, please file bug at Longhorn/website, which is here. Yeah, or you can just click this edit page, and then they will promote you submit PR from here. So it's pretty convenient, and this is what we have set up and right now to replace our old Longhorn repo. You can see that in the document side, and you can see that the Longhorn repo docs does no longer exist, right? Because everything has been migrated to the website. So the next big feature of the 0.A1 is we add a default node disk configuration, and I think we have talked about this before. But now you can see in the documentation, we already have that, where is it? Oh, yes. So we have wrote a very nice documentation for this feature, and you can find it here to help you to set up Longhorn with a new node. And this is about this. And also next part one, we have enhanced our LGAP integration by including a register secret support and helm start. And you can also see in the documentation, here is the latest document about LGAP installation, and you should be able to find every information here. And finally, in fact, just like a couple of weeks before the final release, we have implemented the volume expansion rollback. And with this feature, now the volume expansion is no longer an experimental feature. So now you can comfortably use that. And if you have any problems, you should be able to use rollback to get back to the previous version. So in fact, during the 0.A1 release, we did a pretty big validation with our live upgrade feature, which is the first time we support live upgrade after we have introduced the instance manager since 0.6 release. So for the 0.80 to 0.A1 release, you can just follow the instruction here to upgrade using your using the live upgrade feature. So you don't need to disrupt your workload for doing this upgrade. And also, another thing I want to mention that is if you are the user before the Longhorn 0.7 release, you might need to do, in fact, we highly recommend you to do this driver name migration operation. Because before the 0.7 release, and we are using the driver name, which is io.rancher.longhorn. As you know that we have donated Longhorn to the CNCF. So now the driver name, we have changed that to the driver.longhorn.io. So for Kubernetes, it's a little bit hard for them to you cannot just change the driver name in your PV or PVC. So we have to figure out some way to do that automatically for you. but you need to follow the documentation here to convert your existing, like if you still have some workload that's with the PVC created by the Longhorn Z.62 or older, you should follow this documentation to convert them to the version, to the new driver what we have provided after 0.7 release. So in the Longhorn 1.0, we are going to remove the compatible CSI plugin. So the reason the old driver name was still working before the before is because that we have included a compatible CSI plugin to help user to do the migration. Like during the migration period, you can still use in your all the drivers, but now you shouldn't able to do that anymore, because when the GA happens, we're going to remove that part of like compatibility CSI plugin, and then you are not able to use your PV drivers. So that is, make sure that before you upgrade to GA, you should run this script that follow the steps here. Follow the steps here to migrate your PV and PVC volume to the new driver name. That's something you absolutely need to do. All right. So that is for our past 0.8.1 release, and it's released like last April 28th, if I remember correctly. So for our next release will be our first GA release, Longhorn 1.0, which is, in fact, we're very excited about this, and it's also a very big milestone for Longhorn. So to track the progress in what we are doing right now in the Longhorn 1.0 is you can click the milestone in the 1.0. As you can see that here, in fact, we have there are many like in fact, we're going to address a lot of documentation bugs and also fixing some nightly test issues if we can. So because, as I mentioned before, Longhorn is using the ZenHub as the project manager tools. So you can see what's the status right now on the ZenHub side. And you can see that there are a few highlights we're going to do in the GA release. And you can, for example, 820, this one has been there for a while. So the thing is, the feature disaster recovery, not disaster recovery, the recovery from the Kubernetes node. For example, if you have a deployment that has a pod running on a node and that node went down, if that deployment pod is using Longhorn volume, Kubernetes will not going to automatically detach that Longhorn volume. Kubernetes will going to just like start another pod, on another node, but without the detaching the blocks device read-write once volume. So that's going to cause a problem for Longhorn. So what we are doing here is we are going to try to detach this kind of scenario and try to do it, just help the user to make the experience on the Kubernetes better. So Longhorn will detect that this kind of scenario happens, and then we are going to remove the volume attachment or do something like to detach the volume from the original down node, and then we are going to reattach that, and then Kubernetes will ask Longhorn to reattach that volume to the new node. So then your new workload with your persistent storage should run well. So there, in fact, there's another follow-up for this is if you have a stateful set, which is down in a node, and Kubernetes will not automatically provision, like automatically start another pod to replace that. So in fact, it's still supposed to be the Kubernetes job to do that. But we have decided that since I think for the last 2 years, this has become a known issue, but we're still unable to figure anything out to make the Kubernetes community progress, or make some progress on that. So we decided that we can see if we can do it ourselves, and probably need to require a little more like a permission on our backside for the user. For example, we can monitor the pod and delete that pod if necessary when the node is down, those stuff. So that is another thing we have in our roadmap for the 1.1 release. So we are going to have maintenance guide and the service crash document guide, best practice guide, and also one on the maintenance side, we are going to introduce a feature to pause replica rebuild for the server maintenance. For example, you can set that you even in the normal situation, you don't want to say pause the replica rebuild, but you want to limit the rebuild can happen at the same time. And then you can say that I can only allow like 5 or 10 replica rebuild happens on the same time. So, but if you reduce that number, that will going to be a global setting. If you reduce that number to 0, and then Longhorn will essentially stop from like creating new automatic rebuilding, because that if you are predict that you are going to perform node maintenance or like a reboot the node, you don't really want to have another like replicas or stuff coming up, like just buy it automatically. And if you are going to like delete it later, it's going to be a waste of time and waste of bandwidth and waste of disk space. So that is one thing we're going to help with the maintenance. And another thing, as a follow-up to this, is we're going to have the feature to rebuild Longhorn replica based on the existing replicas in the 1.1 release as well. And that should help with the maintenance work a lot when you can just avoiding copying like most of existing data if you just have a like very short outage. Another thing we are working on right now is the workload cordon, and currently Longhorn doesn't really consider or react to the Kubernetes cordon command. So, but now we think that if the user wants this node to be cordoned, then the user is probably also want this node to stop being, stop being schedulable. So like say, if I want this node to be cordoned, I won't want any like new replica to be created on this node. And that is in fact makes sense. But we are going to add an option for user to do that. So for example, we are going to, so what we are planning to do is we are going to detect the state of the Kubernetes node and see if the state has been cordoned or not. If so, and we are going to update our the node condition to say this node has been cordoned, but you have option to say automatically disable scheduling when the node is cordoned and automatically enable it when the node is uncordoned, and those type of settings you have the control over. Okay, so there's another feature, in fact, already implemented in the last few days, is we add a parameter for the trusted CA and in the backup. So now you can bring your own like a CA certificate into the Longhorn. If you say you are set up like Minion or other like backup store, which is inside your, most likely inside your LGAP or your local private environment. So they will not have like a public available SSL certificate, and it's not going to be like most likely going to have a self-signed certificate. So previously Longhorn doesn't support self-signed certificate, so it must be either no certificate or is like a trusted certificate. So with this feature, Longhorn allows you, Longhorn will allow you to bring the trusted CA as a client side, and then Longhorn can talk with your self-signed certificate and over SSL. So this is what this feature do, and also is mostly important for like the private and the private environment setup or LGAP environment setup. So normally if you get, say, if you want something like AWS or something like a public cloud service, their own S3 endpoint is always like have the proper certificate, which is signed by the trusted CA. So this won't be a problem. All right. So that's all the highlights we are going to have in the 1.0 GA release. And in fact, our target date is about end of this month, so we don't really have much time left. But everybody is working very hard and to solve these issues. And for the next few releases, if you want to have more information, you can take a look at our roadmap, which in fact I'm updating it at most every week or even sometime every day. So, but the thing is, the feature list here is what we are trying to achieve in the next few releases. And if you have any comments, if you have say any suggestions for the future you think is important to Longhorn, feel free to raise the issue in Longhorn and mark it as enhancement so we can take a look. All right. So any questions?
Only one. As the CSI driver becomes more advanced, will flex volume go away, or is flex volume still part of the availability for Longhorn?
So currently, at the Longhorn side, in fact, we just removed the flex volume, like just one version. I think in XR8 release, so we have removed that because now the CSI is the only recommended like driver framework for on Kubernetes side. So at least for us, there's no need to keep the flex volume now. But the thing is, I think there are some other vendors still not really moving fast enough on this. So they might still using flex volume. I was think flex volume will still be supported by Kubernetes for a while, but it's not going to be have like bright features or any like newly added features like CSI do.
Okay.
All
That's
right.
my only question.
Okay. All right. Okay. So thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next month, and hopefully, and then you'll see the first Longhorn GA release demo at the time. All right. Thank you.